I'm going to introduce the redundancy solution. So the redundancy setting is a basic but important features. Today we will discuss redundancy from those three sections, and we will talk about the system structure and how we do the redundancy settings from both software and hardware. I think everyone here should know why we need the backup. And the working condition is always the first thing that we really care about. Now here, this is a control system structure without redundancy. So normally, there is only one channel from the video source to the video processor, to the controller, then to the other receiving card. But what will happen if the data channel is broken? So for example, this cable is disconnected. It means the rest of the screen will be blackout. And also, if this main channel is disconnected, which means the whole screen will be blackout. So because there is no data goes into the cabinets, we cannot let this happen. So let's say, what can we do? So same structure here, but this time I added one more controller. So the top one work as primary, and the bottom one will work as the backup. So same situation. If one cable is disconnected, and the main channel, the data will go from the main channel will go to the first receiving card and to this one. And at the meantime, the backup controller will continue to work from the last receiving card to this one. So which means this will ensure that the full screen is displayed properly. And you may have a question, if I only have one controller, and can I still use the redundancy? So the answer is yes. For example here, we can use a controller which has four Hello, can you hear me? There must be something wrong. Sorry, I just back to maybe the first page. The second page, okay. So this is the original system without redundancy. The main channel will give the data from the video processor to the controller, then to the receiving card. Okay. So if something wrong, if one cable is disconnected, the rest will be blackout. So that's why we have this system with the redundancy. Okay, the main channel. In this situation, one cable, same situation, the one cable is disconnected. The main channel can only transmit the data from the first receiving card to this one. But at the meantime, the backup controller will continue to work to give the data from the last receiving card to this one to make the whole screen work properly. And also you may have question, so if I only have one controller, can I still use the redundancy system? Yeah, the answer is yes. So we can use, for example, here I have a controller which has 4 outputs. We set the first 2 output as the primary and the last 2 port as the backup. So if any cable between the controller and the receiving card is broken, the signal will be automatically reversed from the backup port to the screen. But compare with the previous 2 controller backup system, what are the disadvantages of this one? You can think about, if the controller here is dead, it means the whole screen will be blackout. So that's the difference between the controller backup and the port backup. So it looks like the controller backup is more safety. Now let's take a look at the specific connection methods. This one we already see we use one controller and as the port backup, 2 different ports. And the second controller method, the redundancy on multiple units, we have 2 controllers here, and all those 2 are cascaded with the USB cable. Okay. And the last one, we will say the only difference is here. 2 controllers will connect to the control PC separately. So there are 3 structures that show the different backup. Now we know that with backup settings, we can keep screen working when there is cable broken or even the sending card is off. And above is the hardware structure, but how to do the configuration so that the controller know which one is the primary or which one is the backup. To set it up, we can do it through both software and the hardware. Now we will start with the software operation first. So for the single unit, the port backup, we start with the NovaStar software. So when we log in, we can see there, when we click the screen configuration, there are only one option to select the USB cable, the port, because we only have one controller, of course, connected to the PC. So when we click next, on the left part is I think everyone know as well, we need to make the screen connection, because the screen connection always be the most basic settings and also very important. All the backup setting is based on screen connection, the mapping. So if the screen connection is wrong, the rest the backup setting become useless. So when this done, we can back to the screen card part, and from the redundancy setting, first we need add and make that our own rules. Here, for the serial number of primary sending card, we select 1, and the serial number of backup controller, we select 1 because we only have 1 controller. But for the port, here I use serial number port, primary port, we use number 3, and the serial number of the backup port, I use number 4, which means the number 4 port will back up for number 3. So when we add, we will see another rules on this table. So we already see one, it has been added, the 1112. What that means? It means we use 1 controller, 1 sending card, but we use the port 2 to back up for the port 1. So when everything is done, we can send this to the system, then save to the hardware. So all these backup settings will save to the sending card. The next software, we can use the Smart LCT to do the screen backup, the redundancy. Of course, first of all, we need to do the screen connection. For example, here I used mControl 4K and use 2 of them as the primary port. Then I click Hot Backup here. Now from this new Windows, we just need to drag this controller to this space and drag the port to the second row, which is the redundancy position. So that here we use the port 3 to back up port 1 and port 4 backup for port 2. And also you can customize, for example, I can drag the number 7 to here, which means the port number 7 will back up for port number 9. Okay. Another way we can do this is here. You see there is a button. When we click here, we will make the quick settings. So the system will make the backup automatically. For example, for the mControl 4K, it has 16 output. From the first 8 output, it works as primary. And the last 8 output work as the backup. So it's 9 to 1, 10 to 2, 11 to 3, like this way. Okay. Now, for the control backup, we have the redundancy on cascade unit. Still start with the NovaStar software. When we log in, we will see there is 1 system, but in this system, we have 2 controllers. So 1 system, if we go to the screen configuration, we can still see only 1 option to select the USB port. When we click next, the same settings for the screen connection. But here we can see the sending card number, we have 2 of them. Okay. Here you need to remember, for this cascade unit redundancy, we just need to do the screen connection, the mapping, only for the previous controller, only for 1 controller number 1 here. When this connection is done, we can back to the sending card redundancy settings. So something familiar, but as before, but here we saw the serial number of primary sending card is number 1. Serial number of backup controller is number 2 because we have 2 controller, 1 as primary, 1 as backup. And also we can set which port you want to be the backup or which you want to be the primary. So when we add, we will have another rules on this table. So let me explain again. For example, here I already have 1121. What that means? It means I have 2 controller. Number 1, primary. Number 2, backup. But for both controller, I use the port, number 1 port. So the port 1 backup for port 1. Okay, same step, send to the system and save to the sending card. Okay. Now let's see how it makes from the Smart LCT. So here I used the offline design. So before we do the redundancy settings, we need add the device on this list. First step, we click here, and you will see the add device window. From this part, optional device. For example, if I want to use mControl 4K for my system, I need text two, at least two, one as primary, one as backup, and then click add. Here you will see two mControl 4Ks is added, and all two controller in the same group is A1 group. Then we click OK. So now we will see two controller here. Okay. How we know it's in the same group, or how we know it's already cascaded? We can check the serial number, the A1 and A1. They all in the one group, which means the two controller is cascaded. Now, for the mControl 4K number one, when I done with the mapping, go to the hot backup. So there are three ways to do the redundancy settings. The first one, when we drag those two controllers in this space, we can drag this one close to this one. Then we will have this backup finish automatically. So you see each port is connected, which means there's the backup order like 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3, 4 to 4. Okay, and this is the backup device, and this is the master. If another way, if I choose this device close to here, which means the mControl 4K number 2 will become the master, and the mControl 4K number 1 will become the backup device. Okay. And also another way that we can drag the port directly from the backup device to the primary controller. Here we know that means the port number one from the backup controller will back up for primary controller number 1. So 1 to 1, 2 to 2. And also, for example, I can drag this number 7 to here, which means the backup controller number 7's port will back up for the primary controller number 5. So 7 to 5. Okay. The last way is more simple. You can see there is two sections. We can just left click one time click, it will change the color to blue. It means this controller will become the primary, the master. And if we double click, which means this mControl 4K will become the backup device. So that's very simple. Okay. So that's the way how we do the backup for the cascade unit. And for the non-cascade unit, still start with the Nova LCT. After login, we will see there are two control systems. For each control system, it has their own controller. So when we click here, the screen configuration, you will see there are two options, because both of those two controllers connect directly to the control PC. So here, for example, if I choose this one named 0001, this one as the primary, when I go next, now from this interface, we will see the screen configuration and it names 001. So it will help us to know which one you are working on. And make the screen connection. I don't need to talk more. Then, but from this sending card part, we don't have to make the rules again from this table. We can just use set the current device set as primary. So which means this one named 001 controller will become the master. Okay. Then we can select the 005 controller to set as the backup controller. But here you need remember, for this non-cascade unit, we need to set the mapping, the screen connection for both of them. So if I already have the mapping maybe put on my desktop, I can just load from file and send to the hardware. So for both controllers, the 005 and the 001, they have the mapping already. And also for each one, they have send as primary and send as backup. Okay. So, and from the smart LCT, if we want to do the non-cascade unit redundancy, we need add twice device from here, because each time we need you just text one number for the controller. So 2 times here we will have 2 controller here, but difference is they are not in the same group. Control 4K number 1 is in the group A1. So another one will in the group A2, which means they are non-cascaded. Okay. After this one, we go to the hot backup button and still drag them to this space. But there is only one way to do the redundancy backup. It's from here. We click one time click, change to master device. Double click, change to the backup device. Okay. So this is all the way we do for the redundancy from the port backup and also the controller backup. And also we can do it from the hardware, which means from the controller, from the device, the front panel. For example, here I have 2 Control 660 Pro. On the left, the first one, the left one, I can select the advanced setting from the front panel and go to the redundancy, set as primary. But for the second one, the right one, same step, advanced setting, select redundancy, but this time we use as the backup. So that's the way to do the redundancy from the hardware. Okay. So now we all know how what is the structure for the redundancy system, and also what's the difference between them. So let's make a summary. For the redundancy method, we have port backup and also the controller backup. Special for the controller backup, we have 2 structure. One is non-cascaded unit, another one is cascaded unit. Yeah. And for the screen mapping, you need to pay attention about this one. For the non-cascaded unit, we need set the mapping or set the screen connection for both primary and backup controller. Okay, but for the cascade unit, we only need to do the mapping for the primary controller. That's the difference. And both this structure, we can be used from the Nova LCT and the Smart LCT to make the redundancy settings. And for the hardware redundancy settings, because at least we need 2 controller, so only those can be used. The controller redundancy backup. Okay. So I think that's all for today's presentation. If you have any question, my colleague Gilbert will help you to answer them one by one. So now, Gilbert, you can take control.
Okay.